Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Happy Tuesday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today is the 20th of June. Boy, the summer's just flying by. Hope that you're having a good one so far. We're grateful to have you as a viewer of the Wake Up America show. If you're a regular, you know what to do. Make sure you smash that like button. And if it's your first time here, try subscribing. Consider joining us Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central. The Wake Up America show broadcasts 5 days a week, 2 hours of show. Somebody reached out to me last night who is in the podcasting business, and they asked how much work it takes to do a 2-hour show 5 days a week. Well, I'll tell you, it's more than 2 hours. So why don't you subscribe and help support those who are out there fighting for economic freedom and personal liberties. Totally free. You can just choose to click that subscribe button today and help make a difference in the world. All right, let's talk about what's going on in the news. Lots of big news. Donald Trump actually called out Fox News on Fox News in a wide-ranging interview that he sat down with Bret Baier last night, discussing the indictment against him, discussing the fate of the media in the modern times, and I have to say that it was pretty spicy. Or what you might as well just call that Trumpy, right? Spicy. Trumpy is spicy. We'll talk about Donald Trump. I'll play those clips, and we will analyze what he said about his indictment and what that might mean for what he said on the show, which is definitely admissible evidence. At 7:20 this morning, helicopter parents. Have you heard about these? These are parents who are always constantly hovering over their children. Well, they're not just showing up now when it comes to their kids' education, but apparently they're now showing up in the workplace. I was reading a story in the Wall Street Journal yesterday about one parent who actually walked into her daughter's place of work to, well, at least try and get her the job. And they didn't know which person was applying for the job. And apparently this is becoming more common, where you'll see parents trying to actually sit in job interviews with their kids. Kind of weird. We'll talk about that at 7:20 this morning. At 7:30 this morning, I'm excited to have back Larry Sharpe, former gubernatorial candidate for the state of New York and notable black man. Will be joining us today to talk about how New York City apparently has caught on to the reparations fever. Yeah, California, proposal in California that caused so much stir over the last couple of weeks to pay out trillions of dollars in reparations. Apparently got some people in New York pretty excited about that. In New York, libertarian Larry Sharpe will be joining us this morning at 7:30 to talk about that, and we'll hear his thoughts on that. And I also am curious to hear what he thinks about Robert F. Kennedy as well. If you have any questions for Larry, make sure that you send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the news today. If there's anything that you think that we're missing story-wise, make sure that you send it in. I do monitor those text messages, and it's a free way for you to be able to have your voice heard on the Wake Up America show. You're like saying, well, it's a free way to get my voice heard. Does that mean there's a non-free way? Well, sure. You could support the channel by donating today and making a generous donation to the show through a super chat. Or what I really would like to ask for those who are big supporters of my campaigns is to make a generous donation to my new upcoming documentary. I'm crowdfunding for a documentary about the Battle of Athens, Tennessee. If you haven't heard, it's a Give, Send, Go campaign that I'm doing. I get 100% of the proceeds through the fundraising channel, and it's not a woke company that I'm using for the fundraising for this to help tell the story. And if it does well, then I'm considering making it a series, the American Insurrection series, which I think would be pretty awesome. So do us a favor and make a generous donation to that documentary. I've raised about almost $2,000 for that campaign. We're trying to raise 10 grand so that I can go to Tennessee next month to do some interviews. Mr. Meeseeks says, it's official. I identify as a black homeless migrant NYC. Very funny. Meeseeks. Very funny. Yes, I do monitor the chat as on YouTube as well as on Rumble. If you're watching us on Rumble this morning, like Kermode Bear and Nelson65 are this morning, make sure that you're clicking that like button as you stream, as you join us over there streaming on Rumble. I love seeing how big the audience gets over there. And a lot of times it will actually rival YouTube, which is good because I'm concerned that in the upcoming election, we are going to have a lot of interference by social media companies YouTube, as a matter of fact, actually has already come out and talked about how you should censor yourself or they will censor for you. This is actually from a tweet that I posted from Jonathan Turley, who did an analysis on this. He's a lawyer who is who's talking a little bit about what YouTube's policies will be for the upcoming elections in terms of censorship. Again, the idea is that if you don't censor yourself, YouTube will do it for you, which is why I think it is good to have my presence on YouTube, and I want the Cantina crew to continue to support over there on the chance that they don't decide to remove me. But if they do decide to remove me, then I think that it's important for us to have, of course, Rumble, because YouTube did censor Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and we talk about him a lot. I'm going to ask Larry Sharp about him. But this week, YouTube prevented users from hearing the views of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Because they say they will not allow users to hear what it considers to be harmful thoughts. On Sunday, both Kennedy and podcast host Jordan Peterson tweeted they were the latest to be censored by the company. Robert F. Kennedy had tweeted, excuse me. Don't you hate it when you have to sneeze and then you don't? He says, "What do you think? Should social media platforms censor presidential candidates?" My conversation with Jordan Peterson was deleted by YouTube, and then he did share it on Twitter, so you were able to hear it on Elon Musk's platform. But this is continued unrelenting attack by big tech against voices like ourselves, and I don't even have a lot in common with Robert F. Kennedy, other than perhaps our agreements when it came to COVID tyranny and being against mandatory vaccinations. But it doesn't matter if you don't sort of parrot the establishment regime view of elections or of vaccines or things like that. You will get shut down by many of these big tech platforms. So I anticipate that it probably will happen to me in the next year. And I was thankful and lucky enough to be on conservative talk radio, broadcast radio, during the COVID pandemic. So I wasn't shut down and censored over that last 3 years that we endured. But a lot of now I don't have the protection of conservative talk radio broadcasting. I'm on my own out there in the water, and the only thing keeping me afloat is the support of people like yourself. So thank you for watching the show today. Make sure you click like and subscribe to ensure that independent voices like mine can continue to be heard when in fighting against big tech censorship. All right, let's hit the news. I've got the clips of Donald Trump on Bret Baier's show last night, and I gotta say, honestly, I was shocked at Donald Trump's statement here. Not only that he said it, but he kind of doubled down in his criticism of Fox News. It's only an 11-second clip, but I was actually pretty proud of Donald Trump for saying something like this because, well, I'll explain to you why after. Take a listen to this.
Continuation.
More independent voters watch Fox News than any other TV source.
A lot less than used to watch it.
They do watch.
Oh my God. I mean, he's talking to Fox News like he talks to Hillary Clinton in the debates. Let's hear that again. And hold on, you'll hear him double down. Oh, come on, internet. You know what this is? This is big tech censorship right now, not letting me play this. Come on, play the clip. Play the clip, damn it. All right, we'll have to come back to it later. A lot less people used to watch it. And he doubles down and says it again. Let's see if I can refresh. I wonder if this is like an internet speed thing here. Hold on. There we go.
More independent voters watch Fox News than any other TV source.
A lot less than used to watch it.
They do watch. Those voters usually make up.
He had to make sure. I love Bret's face. If you're listening to the audio version of this later, which you can download on any of your podcast devices, FYI, you're missing out on the fun of seeing Bret Baier's face on this one. Let's roll it back again. And if you were just listening and you weren't watching the screen, pick up the screen and watch this clip and watch Bret Baier's face and how Trump just
Continuation.
More independent voters watch Fox News than any other TV source.
A lot less than used to watch it.
They do watch. Those voters usually make up.
Continuation. Less, Bret.
Yeah, you see Bret Baier's face on that one. Yeah. But you got to give Bret Baier credit for being cool. I got to say, this was a really good interview. And I'm not going to play that one just yet, but let's talk about you've all heard this before about the rigged election, but you got to admire Trump for sticking to his guns on this. Take a listen.
First of all, I won in 2020 by a lot, okay? Let's get that straight. I won in 2020.
You know that
and if you look at all of the tapes, if you look at everything that you want to look at, you take a look at Truth to Vote, where they have people stuffing the ballot boxes on tapes, or let's go to recent. Well, wait a minute. Let's go to recent. FBI Twitter. Let's go to recent. The 51 agents, all corrupt stuff, Bret.
Understand about the Hunter Biden,
no, but
all
that's cheating
fair
on the
things.
election.
But
that's cheating on the election.
You lost the 2020 election.
Bret, you take a look at all of the stuffed ballots. You take a look at all of the things, including things like the 51 intelligence agents.
There were recounts in all of the swing states. There was not significant widespread
We're trying
fraud.
to get recounts, real recounts, not just numbers of votes
widespread
cast.
corruption. There was not a sense of that. There were lawsuits, more than 50 of them, by your lawyers, some in front of judges that you appointed.
Look at Wisconsin.
That came out with no evidence.
Judges that you appointed that came out with no evidence in these lawsuits. I mean, Brett's just kind of like dragging him right there. And I mean, you got to give Trump credit. He's sticking by his guns and what he believes.
Wisconsin has practically admitted it was rigged. Other states are doing the same right now, and it's continuing on.
There have been reviews of every
election.
potential case of voter fraud in 6 battleground states, and they found fewer than 475 cases.
You know why? Because they didn't look at the right things.
Okay,
Bret.
are you going
they
to be
They were counting ballots, not the authenticity of the ballot. The ballots were fake ballots. This was a very rigged election.
Are you going to go? This is how you're going to tell that independent suburban woman voter
to vote for you?
We're
off to winning an election, and I think we're winning very well.
That's a winning election, and I think we're winning very well. Boy, it's good stuff here. So on the classified documents, this is the stuff that Trump said that's going to be admissible in court.
That legal battle aside, I just want to ask you a couple of specifics. Why did you have this very sensitive national security defense documents, like the war plans for a strike on Iran?
So like every other president, I take things out. And in my case, I took it out pretty much in a hurry, but people packed it up and we left. And I had clothing in there. I had all sorts of personal items in there, much stuff. And by the way, when Bill Barr, who's, a coward, Bill Barr was a coward. Bill Barr didn't do
You appointed him.
what he was supposed to do. I fired him, and he has great hatred, and that's okay, because some people do, and some people love me very much. He didn't resign. I asked him, give me a letter immediately, because he didn't have the courage to go after so many different things, and you and I have discussed it before, but he was a coward. And he obviously doesn't like me too much, and there are a lot of people that don't, and there are a lot of people that feel just the opposite.
But on the documents.
Let me just explain.
Yeah.
So I've had a lot of things in there. I will go through those boxes. I have to go through those boxes. I take out personal things. As far as the levels and all, everything was declassified because I had the right to declassify. You want to talk about a mess? Take a look at Biden, where he's got 1,850 boxes. He has boxes stored in Chinatown in D.C. He has boxes stored at Penn Center, and he has boxes under his Corvette and around his Corvette sitting in a garage for years, where it was very seriously.
Trump's right about that. And, this isn't just whataboutism. I mean, Trump's going to have to answer in court. But I think that the reality is, we all know, is that Joe Biden is never going to see a day in court. There will never be a day that Joe Biden will be indicted on the same charges that Donald Trump is. And I mean, you would think that if Donald Trump gets indicted on these charges, that the precedent itself being set, that Joe Biden would be afraid of that precedent being set. But the fact is that, well, first of all, Biden probably, doesn't think he's going to really live that much longer anyway, and he doesn't look like he is. But he knows that he'll never see his day in court because our judicial system is fraudulent in how it persecutes people from one ideology and allows people of another ideology to go. I mean, we know that we have a two-tier justice system here in the United States, and Trump is right to point that out. Let's continue.
Classified. I have every right to have those boxes. This is purely a Presidential Records Act. This is not a criminal thing. In fact, the New York Times of all had a story just the other day that the only way NARA could ever get this stuff, this back, would be, please, 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 could we have it back?
And they
please,
asked for that.
because they have no.
They did ask for it.
No, and
they said,
I gave
"Can you
them
give the documents back?"
And we were talking.
And then they said they went to DOJ to subpoena you to get them
which
back.
they've never done before.
Right.
And in
but
all
why not
fairness,
just hand them over then?
Because I had boxes. I want to go through the boxes and get all my personal things out. I don't want to hand that over to NARA yet. And I was very busy, as you've sort of seen.
Yeah, but
I've
according
been
to
very,
the
very
indictment,
busy.
you then tell this aide to move to other locations after telling your lawyers to say you'd fully complied with the subpoena when you hadn't.
But before I send boxes over, I have to take all of my things out. These boxes were interspersed with all sorts of things, golf shirts, clothing, pants, shoes. There were many things.
You got to be careful about saying that kind of stuff. God, if I was Trump's lawyer, I would be sitting there saying, don't be saying this stuff, Donald, because, anything that he's saying here is absolutely admissible. And when he says things like this, I mean, he puts himself in real danger, honestly. I don't know. What do you think about this? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. You can text us in and I will read your chat on air. If you think that there's any stories that we're missing today, make sure that you let us know by texting us at 573-319-1586. John Rail says the Bidens will not be charged with anything ever. I bet money on it. Probably true. All right, let's continue here with what Donald Trump said in his interview with Bret Baier. The biggest moment, and this is the one that the Democrats really are parading out everywhere, but I wonder what your take is on this one. Take a listen to this part.
In 2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that.
This
and we
time-
had tremendous, look, we had the best economy we've ever had.
This
the world
time-
has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second Defense Secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian, milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife.
My God, dude, what in the hell? That is crazy.
How dare you?
How dare you, Bret Baier? I mean, Jesus, can you imagine? He probably spent all night writing that question. I'll never forget the presidential debates in 2016 when I would come up with questions to ask Gary in debates. And it was just like, I would sometimes come up with just these loving smackdowns. And you had to know Bret Baier is sitting up all night writing that question.
So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Because
Did you hire all of them in the first place? Jesus, Brad, you killed him. Good God, Donald Trump's lawyers watching this interview.
No, God! No!
If you
God,
thought that
please,
was
no,
good,
no,
guess what?
no,
There is a part 2 of this interview coming. Yeah. Yes. There's plenty more excitement to go. It's definitely going to be fun. Well, let's see how Donald Trump answers that.
I hired 10 to 1 that were fantastic. We had a great economy. We had phenomenal people in charge of the economy. We had phenomenal people in the military. I'm not a fan of Milley, and I'm not a fan of certain of the television people. But I knocked out ISIS. I defeated ISIS. They said, Mattis, it would take 3 years, and I don't think we can do it. I did it in a period of like 4 weeks.
There's a lot of
We
people who
knocked-
praise you for your policies. I just said that.
That's true. Well, I mean, you just went through a list. But don't forget, for every one you say, I had 10 that love us. And one thing happens, I find, with
In
I got to say, though, that question, and I'm going to play this one more time before we take a quick break to go get Larry Sharp on the show. I really want you to listen to how Bret Baier words this question and understand the amount of loving care and work that was done. here's the thing. He may have written this question, but he did not write this alone. Bret Baier had like a team of people coming together to do all the research for this. I'm sure Bret Baier, he's a fantastic reporter. I'm sure that Bret probably, um, knew a lot of this stuff offhand, but when you hear a question that's poised as in such a way, this was like, probably a week's worth of journalism was done in order to ask this one question.
2016, you said that. I'm going to surround myself with only the best and most serious people.
Well, I did do that,
This
and we
time-
had tremendous. Look, we had the best economy we've ever had.
This
The world
time-
has ever seen.
Your Vice President, Mike Pence, is running against you.
Yeah.
Your Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, she's running against you. Your former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, said he's not supporting you. You mentioned National Security Advisor John Bolton. He's not supporting you either. You mentioned Attorney General Bill Barr, says you shouldn't be president again, calls you the consummate narcissist and troubled man. You recently called Barr a gutless pig. Your second Defense Secretary is not supporting you, called you irresponsible. This week, you and your White House called your White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, weak and ineffective and born with a very small brain. You called your acting White House Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, a born loser. You called your first Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, dumb as a rock, and your first Defense Secretary, James Mattis, the world's most overrated general. You called your White House Press Secretary, Kayleigh Canadian milquetoast, and multiple times you've referred to your Transportation Secretary, Elaine Chao, as Mitch McConnell's China-loving wife. So, why did you hire all of them in the first place?
Because I hired 10 to 1 that were.
Great question. That is definitely the kind of thing that takes a lot of work to get a question like that done. All right, we're gonna go get our friend. That's a clip that I've got for you for later. We're gonna go get our friend Larry Sharp, but maybe we'll ask him about that. I'd like to hear Larry's take on New York City advocating now for reparations, just like California. All that and more when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Don't leave. We'll be right back.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Everybody think, reparations is a good idea, dog. Reparations is stupid.
I'm surprised to hear you say that. I figured you'd make a case for how slavery got you all oppressed and how the white man got his foot on your neck.
Giving out money wouldn't do nothing. Look at him.
Man, that boy ain't doing nothing now but infomercials for bad credit.
Man, slavery, man, it ruined my whole life.
I don't know what y'all say, man, but I ain't taking no reparations, because as a black man, I got my pride and my dignity.
You know what? That's bull. You know why? Because you got bills. And your brothers ain't letting no money get by. Next, you're gonna talk about how the Jews got money from the Holocaust.
Jews didn't get money, dog. Holocaust survivors got money.
We had welfare and affirmative action. Is that not reparations?
We had welfare and affirmative action. Is that not reparations? That was the movie Barbershop. Joining me now to discuss New York City getting the reparations fever is notable black libertarian Larry Sharp, who's joining us now bright and early this morning. Good morning, Larry. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. I am both notable and black, so thank you. I checked both boxes.
That's good to hear. We've got you on. You're more than just a token, though, Larry. A lot of people look up to you for your opinions and advice. You're a former gubernatorial candidate for the Libertarian Party in the state of New York, and an advocate for the ideas of individualism over collectivism. So tell us your thoughts on the idea that New York lawmakers are proposing to follow in California's lead and potentially have trillions of dollars of reparations to people like yourself.
Well, if you think New York State's actually going to write a check for trillions of dollars, I have a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. But actually, if you think that if your goal is to make people think you actually care about them, this is a wonderful idea, because Democrats do what they always do. They'll act like they're going to do something. They will have amazing rhetoric often that will sound better to minorities and people of color than Republican rhetoric is. It'll sound better, but the outcome's exactly the same. Nothing. They'll do nothing to assist anyone. In fact, if they do anything, they'll try to hurt people. So first off, it's nothing but a way of talking, which is, again, if your goal is to virtual signal, home run. It's a great virtual signal, but it's not actually going to do anything anyway. So I think that's what's actually happening in California. I don't see Gavin Newsom writing checks, right? I don't see him writing checks. I don't see someone in New York doing it either. So I don't think it's real, I guess, is what my opinion is of it.
Well, what can we do to sort of assuage the grievances that the black community clearly seems to have against majority communities here in the United States? Don't you think reparations would be a good way to sort of heal the racial divide?
Well, again, I'm not against in theory. I'm not. In theoretically, if the government creates a wrong, it should right the wrong. And then what Ronald Reagan said, right? So I think in theory, I think that's absolutely true. The question is, how do you do it to where, one, it seems fair, two, you don't piss everybody off, and three, it actually does something that's real, right? And I think that's important. And I come up with a plan years ago. I don't know if you remember the plan I come up with reparations years ago when this first came into the world, right? After 2019, 2020, it really started coming into the American psyche. So about the idea of instead, I think there are two ideas. One I did not make up and one I did. The one I didn't make up was the idea of selling some national land and then taking a chunk of that and then writing a check to all African descendants of slaves, right? That was one style. I think it's not necessarily a bad idea. My worry about just writing a check is, as most people know, and I look at this from the lottery, this is not a black or a white thing. People who win the lottery, about half of the people who win the lottery are worse off 5 years later, about 1/3 go bankrupt. So the last thing I want to do is take a bunch of my people and make half of them worse off, and then 30% go bankrupt. And then the wealth gap across the country and even in my own community would be worse, right? So I think if we just wrote big checks, there'd actually be more damage than there would be value. If you go down the route, if you decide to go down the route of selling land to make that happen, then I think bonds may be a better idea. Maybe bonds or something like that may be a better idea to give to families. That may be a better idea that would make people feel more comfortable. It wouldn't be a direct check. I'm not punishing anybody else. That's not bad. But the idea that I brought up was the idea that now you change everything for one full generation, 23 years as an example of a generation. I think it's still 23 years. Any land owned 51% or more, obviously, by African descendants of slaves, all of the taxes and fines on it are halved. So this has to be an amendment. Otherwise, it has to go through all taxation, local or not, must be an amendment. Everything's halved. What happens if you do that? One, you're increasing the odds of someone who's an African descendant of slaves of buying property, of getting involved in property, but something else. It's a voluntary way of integrating. You're going to have a whole bunch of white, Hispanic, Asian people who go, I want to buy a building. Where are my black friends? Right? So you're going to have a whole bunch of people who want to do that. And that means commercial property, residential property, investment property, no matter what, all of a sudden now you're going to have voluntary integration and encourage the idea of ownership. Not just that. Anytime an African descendant of slaves decides to transfer wealth within that person's family, there are actually no fees, no matter what the states and local municipalities might say. Because the concept is from slavery and after is there was a generational wealth problem. So let's help generational wealth. If you decide to do that, that's great. But I'll go one step further. Any business that is owned by 51% of African descendants of slaves is all fees, fines, taxes are halved. Same thing. It encourages integration, encourages ownership, all of those things. Last thing, since African Americans have been attacked worse by the war on drugs than anybody else, this one is not racial. This just helps everybody, but will help the Black community more. Again, an amendment, every single drug crime that is nonviolent is immediately pardoned, expunged, ended. Never happened across the state this way. If it has been an amendment, this way all local municipalities must comply. So you erase the records of all the people that's possession from drugs, period. That will help a bunch of poor white and Hispanic people also, but it will heavily affect Black people. Now, the last thing you do once you do all of that is you say it's going to go for 23 years. Imagine for 23 years, all of a sudden, if you have a bunch of half taxes, half fines, half fees, and a bunch of people who aren't Black are also joining in and integrating and changing the culture in the Black community. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to end. Well, here's what's going to happen. The white people and Hispanic people and Asian people are going to say, I like my half taxation with my Black friends. I don't want to change it. And it's going to become permanent. And once that becomes permanent, now all the people say, oh my God, a massive tax cut. Thanks, Black people. That is what I would like to have happen 23 years from now.
Not in a better world, in some alternative universe, Larry, you are the governor of New York and making such proclamations. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Petersen, and I'm speaking to Larry Sharpe. He is a former gubernatorial candidate in the state of New York for the Libertarian Party. We're talking about the idea of reparations. Quest Fanning, speaking of generational wealth, Quest Fanning just dropped a super chat. Thank you, Quest, who says an idempotent, which is both happen or neither operation, to write the check for reparations, but then end all the other programs. In other words, Larry, what if the proposal to offer reparations came along with the idea that all other welfare programs would be struck from the books?
Well, you could do that. However, sadly, most people on welfare are not African American. So what you'd actually be doing,
sad?
Because what you'd be doing, well, it'd be sad because it wouldn't be doing what it should be, what you want to do, right?
Right.
You would actually wind up giving, you actually be supplementing people who are African descendants of slaves, but then everyone else who's on public assistance would just have the rug pulled out from underneath them without any other answer or something like that, right?
Right.
You know me, I'm more than happy to dump all the programs, but our communities are not currently prepared to help people who are in trouble, right? If we had gotten government out to where now communities were able to support people who are in problems, having problems, I'm all in, but I don't see that happening right now.
Larry, I'd like to ask you about this event that happened 10 days ago in your state of New York. The statue of Philip Schuyler was removed from downtown Albany. He was a prominent figure during the Revolutionary years, one of the largest owners of slaves in New York. Your thoughts on the removal of that statue?
Generally speaking, I don't like the removal of statues unless you auction them off, right? I like the auction off of statues. That's always a better answer for me, right? When you auction off statues, now if you like the person or care about the person, you can get some people together and you can buy the statue. You can then keep it in your house because you like the person on your front yard. Or if you hate the person that badly, you can have a, I don't know, burning of the statue or something with all your friends in your front yard, whatever, any of those things. So I think that's not necessarily a bad idea if you're going to sell the statues off. But generally speaking, I'm not sure the destroying of statues is a good or bad thing. Again, it becomes very symbolic. Did I change anything? No, but do I feel good about it? I do. It feels good when I go out and destroy things or get together and make something happen. It feels good. So it's very good when it comes to virtue signaling, but it doesn't actually do anything. In fact, if anything, it just makes people angry because now we start fighting each other over whether we should have or shouldn't have. I say,
what about like
either leave them
statues of like
alone-
Robert E. Lee, though, or like Jefferson Davis, for example?
Even those, all of them. If I'm not going to make change, why do I care, right? Okay, so great. Now the statue's gone. Is my rent paid? Does my kid have a better education? Is my business doing better? Are any of those things happening in a person's life? Is their life better? The problem with our current state of politics is a victory for an individual isn't my life gets better, but that I own the other, right? I own the lib or I beat the Trumpster. So I got that person. See, I'm winning. Okay, great. Is your life better? No. Is your rent paid? Are your bills taken care of? Is your mortgage paid? Is your car note paid? Are you in a better position? No. Why do you care if a statue comes down or not? I don't.
A lot of people who criticize the LP ever since the Mises caucus takeover criticize that it's become more racist, that it's become more like white nationalist since this group of people took over the Libertarian Party. You're still a member of the Libertarian Party. What's your analysis of the takeover of the Mises people, things like that? Has it been an improvement since 2016, since I was there when the Nick Sarwark people ran the show?
Well, I would say, and this will make probably everybody upset, but not that it hasn't stopped in the past. The takeover of the Mises, it was actually a symptom. It was a symptom. Somebody was going to take over the party. It was a group of people who were going to be aggressive enough to make it happen. And whether you are pro or anti-Mises, whatever you might think, the Mises caucus was one thing. They were organized. They were dogged, and they made sure it happened. So to quote Nick Sarwark, the party is run by people who show up. Right. So he was correct. And the Mises caucus showed up and they took it over. The thing to remember is, so people who are angry at Mises and go, oh my God, they're bad. Okay, let's assume that they're bad. They're racist to all these things. A bunch of people picked racist and all these things over you. How bad were you? That's really the issue. How bad were you? How incompetent were you or how bad were you? Or if you weren't incompetent or bad, how bad or incompetent was your image? To where people believed that that was a better answer. So whether right or wrong, what I've told everybody, now it's your job to counter-organize. You don't like the Mises caucus? Awesome. Counter-organize and get rid of them. It's not like anybody can actually run the Libertarian Party decently anyway. I mean, you and I both know that. I mean, there's two things about the Libertarian Party which are true at the same time. It is a dumpster fire on wheels and has been for at least a decade, if not more. And it is still the best third-party alternative in the country. Those two things are true. And both of them in a way are sad, but they're both absolutely true. If you hear everyone now talking about third-party alternatives, you and I again both know, how are you going to get in the ballot in all 50 states? How are you going to actually fight these actual duopoly? It's not easy. The only party that can do it right now is still Libertarian Party. If that changes one day, maybe I'll change my mind. But until that changes, that's where my head is.
Sarah Palacios in the live stream says, Larry cuts to the chase. Ha ha. Let's give him a round of applause there. That's Larry Sharp we're speaking to. We've got him for a few more minutes. Larry, I'd like to talk to you about current events. Robert F. Kennedy, the presidential candidate in the Democratic Party, is getting over 20% in some polls of support from registered Democrats, people who will go and vote in the primary. What is your take on Robert F. Kennedy? A lot of libertarians have said that they're going to leave the Libertarian Party to go and support Robert Kennedy in the Democratic primary. Your thoughts on that?
I was shocked to see how many libertarians feel that way. Austin, you are completely correct. I've seen libertarians all over the place go, you know what? I would never vote for a Democrat, but RFK, yeah, him I would. I hear that all the time. And I think there is something special about him in that he's believable that he actually wants change. I think that was what attracted so many people to Bernie Sanders, right? They believed he actually wanted to change till he sold out. But they believed that he actually wanted to change. They believed Barack Obama wanted change. They believed that Trump wants change. They believe that RFK wants change. If people honestly believe that the person wants change, I think that's when you see things actually going to move. As I say always, people always say, Larry, when are things going to get so bad that we actually make things happen? And I say, it doesn't matter about things getting bad. It's called learned helplessness. People will stay in pain for literally decades, if not centuries. Ask the Russian peasants how long that lasts. They'll stay in pain for decades until finally two things have to happen. One, things are very bad and people see hope. And I think those people that I mentioned all gave people hope, right? Hope and change from Obama, Make America Great Again from Trump. Bernie had, the Bernie bros, he had nothing but hope, changing everything. I think RFK does that also. I think the Democrats do not want him, which is why you do not see him in certain polls. Some people don't realize why he's not in polls. He's not in polls because Democratic PACs and Democratic organizations buy the polls. When they buy the poll, they don't put him in the poll. He who buys the poll writes the poll. So obviously they're buying polls and leaving him out because they are afraid. I think there is actually a chance that because of RFK, and I said it just actually a while ago, Biden may not be the nominee. I said that because if he sees things going poorly, he may drop out, or something else you're seeing happening already. You're seeing guys like Newsom out of California go, maybe Biden's weak. And so maybe a guy like Newsom might jump in also, or someone else like that might jump in. Now, the question is, does Newsom jump in and attempt to take out Kennedy and to curry favor with Biden? Or does do it in the fact to actually try to knock Biden out? That I'm not really sure.
There's a lot of people, a large contingent of people who believe that vaccination causes autism, Larry. I'm not one of them. But considering what you and I know about the typical libertarian, is it possible that vaccines cause libertarianism?
Well, I don't think so because most libertarians are unvaxxed. So no. So I mean, yes,
see,
and the reason why they're unvaxxed is not
right there.
Yes, right there. So, but no, the reality of it is the reason why they are unvaxxed is because the government actually told them to get it. That is the reason why they didn't.
Right.
So, yes,
if the government told us
yes.
not to get vaccinated, libertarians would be signing up for those vaccines all day long.
Every one of us would be vaxxed, 100%, guaranteed. We'd have the boosters. We'd make our own vax. We were absolutely 100% correct. We would have all of the things.
Do you think that's where a lot of the support for RFK Jr. really comes from? Is, parties that are out of power, conspiracy theories are kind of how they gather support amongst themselves.
Yeah.
Like this is kind of a phenomena that you will see it, when Democrats are out of power, they're always conspiracy theorizing about Republicans who are in power and vice versa. But because libertarians are never in power, we're always just sort of bursting at the seams full of conspiracy theories because we don't actually have any power or authority. So do you think that's really where a lot of the love for RFK comes from?
I think the fact that he will admit that the government made mistakes, that the CIA may be wrong. I'm joking, my CIA agent who's listening right now. So yes, it may be wrong. That he actually says the government screwed up the COVID situation. I mean, these are things. I mean, he says that publicly. Every libertarian goes, "What? Oh my God, our savior has come." So yes, 100%. That's one of the reasons why libertarians love him, because he will openly criticize the government. He will say it did things wrong. But the difference is Democrats will say Republicans screwed the government up. Republicans will say Democrats screwed the government up. He will say the government screwed up. And I think that is one of the biggest advantages you'll see to him, and why so many libertarians like him. He will actually say, yes, it was a mistake. They screwed up with the vaccines. They screwed up with the lockdowns. They screwed up with all those things. It was a mistake and it was wrong. The CIA, wrong. FBI, wrong. These are things that libertarians tell each other like every day. And now someone's actually saying the quiet part out loud, and it does make us happy. It's true.
There were a lot of libertarians who criticized me for jumping ship back in 2017 to run as a Republican. I know not you, but like the Martha Buenos of Miami and different people like that, of which many of those same people are now jumping ship to go and support Democrats and to go support Robert F. Kennedy. Now, I'm not going to give them the same kind of hell that they gave me, just because honestly, I think it's mostly inconsequential. But if you could say something to a libertarian who is considering quitting the LP, signing up for the Democrats, and going and participating in their primary to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., what would you say to them?
Well, if your goal is just to, you live in a state where it doesn't matter, then, and your goal is just to, have a better Democratic candidate, probably not a bad idea. If that's your goal, if you live in that kind of state, maybe it's true, depends on the state. But if your goal is you actually want him instead of our LP candidate to be president, that's a terrible idea. Right? Regardless of how cool RFK is, and he is cool, that's true, he's still a Democrat, right? He's still a Democrat. So I think that's the issue to remember. If your goal is just because you want to spoil or you want to have a better Democratic candidate, I think that's a wonderful idea. I think it's great, go do it. But if your goal is because you think he's better than a libertarian candidate, you don't even know who the libertarian candidate's going to be yet. I think that's a terrible idea.
What about you? Could it be you, Larry?
The presidential candidate?
Yeah.
100%. I thought you liked me.
Well, I was saying, like, why can't it be you that runs as the Libertarian Party presidential candidate?
Because I just ran last year for governor of New York and got my ass kicked, and my butt is still sore. So that's why.
I know how that feels. Trust me, Larry. But
yes.
Who do you like to be the Libertarian presidential candidate? Who do you think would be a good pick?
I think we have 3 people running right now actively. We have Chase Oliver, Mike Termott, and Lars Mapstead. And I'm actually doing the presidential forums for them. I'm going to do another one next. There'll be another one next month. It will be at a college in New York City. And I'm having non-libertarians with me co-moderating so that we can actually get the candidates to actually be grilled by non-libertarians. So I'm hoping one of those 3 will become our nominee. I always want somebody who's popular. I want popularity. I think popularity matters. It helps us get in the polls. It helps us move the needle. And the number one issue that I think for our presidential candidate is they have to be able to get a lot of press so that the years after we can actually, we're actually able to support local down ballot candidates, right? The top of the ticket has the best chance for press, the bottom of the ticket, the best chance for victory. And I think we're going to make more change at the local level. So I think if we actually, have a decent presidential candidate, then we got a shot to make some impact. I know they're talking about trying to get, which I love this idea I brought up years ago, focusing on getting some gold on the map, right? Lars Mapstead has a plan. Mapstead is his name, putting Libertarian Party on the map. Cute. So his goal is to get an actual electoral vote. So there'll be some gold on a map, maybe Maine, maybe Nebraska, maybe Utah, someplace, so that now in 2024, you will actually see gold on the map. So every time they show that map, there'll be a little bit of gold on there. And that gold, hopefully, will move people to be better, right? I want better Democrats and better Republicans and a strong Libertarian Party. And unless we have leverage, none of that's going to happen. But if we have some gold, we have some leverage, maybe we can make some actual change.
That would be great, Larry. Anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go?
No, I'm happy you're talking about New York. Finally, someone's talking about New York. It's awesome. Please keep talking about New York. Remember something for all you people who tease me about living in New York. What happens in New York is coming to you. Yes, that's a threat. Take it as one. It is. It will come to you. If you live in New Jersey, it'll come next year. If you live in Utah, about 20 years. But it's coming to you anyway, no matter what. It is coming to you sometime between next year and 20 years from now. Whatever crazy thing we do here is coming to you. In fact, not just is the thing coming to you, we are coming to you. I'm losing 300,000 New Yorkers every single year, and a bunch of them are coming to you because they're leaving my state. So they're coming to you. So help me fix New York so it doesn't come to you. See?
Larry, thanks for being so generous with your time today and joining us so frequently these days on the Wake Up America show. Every time I see a New York story, I'm like, I got to hear from Larry Sharpe on this one, and our audience clearly loves you. So thank you very much for your time today. We look forward to seeing you hopefully again real soon.
Have a good one, brother.
Have a good one. Give Larry a round of applause. What do you think of Larry Sharpe? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. This clip yesterday that I saw from Bordeaux, France, caught my attention. Take a look at this. What would you do in this situation if you're this lady? Watch this. Here she is. She's looking out there. She's, you got this creepy gentleman there coming out and didn't get that door closed in time. Boom. Oh, yikes. What's going on here? Ouch. That's terrifying. What does the man want? Oh. I gotta say, and there's the useless dog right there. Like, probably could have used a pit bull in that moment here. But let's watch this again in terms of situational awareness. Now, ladies, I know that you American ladies are made of sterner stuff than your French counterparts. But I just want to remind you to follow your instincts, okay? When you see somebody on the corner and he looks a little bit creepy and you've got your child there with you, just a reminder. And I know, again, most of you American ladies who are listening to me right now, you ain't got to worry about it. And as for the men, I know that you would have come out of there with both barrels and just hauled off and punched that guy. That wasn't going to be an option for this lady right here. But for those of you ladies, you American ladies who may not necessarily be trained in martial arts like my wife, and those who may not necessarily be carrying all the time, which, not everybody always has a gun on them 24 hours a day. Although, again, I know a lot of you do. I just want to remind you, ladies, you can see in her eyes that, you can see here this woman, she sees this attacker here down the street, okay? And she knows that something's not right. But here's the thing. She probably didn't want to appear racist, okay? And it's better to appear racist than to have happen what's going to happen next. Let's watch this video again. You can see she's got a bad feeling about it, right? But she doesn't want to appear racist, okay? She's got a little girl right there. Now she's seeing him out of the corner of her eye. She's like, get in there. All right, get inside. But it's too late. It's too late. He's got his foot in the door, and boom, he goes in. He grabs both of them, drags them out here on the street, slams them, and now they're incapacitated, and the decision is all up to him what he wants to do, okay? Grabs them, starts dragging her up, gets whatever it is that he was looking for, and then runs off. Right. And here's the thing. Look at the little girl. You can actually see how she handles things. Watch this. So she goes, boom, he comes up. Thankfully, he didn't try and run away with her. She like, looks like she slaps him a little bit and then, boom, runs away. Good for you, little girl. Grandma, terrible job. But I think the individual that needs the most chastising in this clip here is the sweet little friendly Labrador. Very nice. I don't want to hear anybody saying anything about the size or stature of my French Bulldog ever again, as you saw this little Labrador here in the way that he handled this situation. So in terms of like who came out looking the worst in this one, obviously the attacker in this, but the Labrador definitely gets number 2 on this one. Again, watch her facial expression here. Okay, let's see this. Now she sees him. She knows what's up. Don't want to appear racist, but I'm not feeling good about this. And now it's too late. It's far too late. And he's got his foot in the door. And I have no idea what he gets out of this, right? What good did he get out of this? He's just evil, right? Boom, there you go. And it looks like he's grabbing something there in the street. I don't know if they had something, like maybe it was a watch. Grabs her, rips her up. So, so why don't we just keep our situational awareness and remember, it's better to appear racist than to be dead. We'll be back with more. My brother Justin Petersen is going to join us at 8:30 to talk about that Titanic tourist submarine that disappeared. I wrote a little short story about what I think happened underneath the sea of rescue operations that has very little time to try and find tourists who went down under the Black Ocean to go visit the Titanic and have since not returned. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
To the Cantina Crew, this is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Petersen will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot, red-headed libertarians? then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right, well, we allowed her to have a little 2-week vacation from her regular weekly appearances on the show, but we demanded, I say demanded, that she come back and join us again. She's Daniela Pensack. She's a field coordinator for Turning Point USA, and she's back from vacay. Good morning, Daniela, and don't ever leave us like that again.
Oh, good morning. I promise I'll do my best not to do that again.
So we're grateful to have you here, Daniela, and you bring a lot of excellent news reporting to the table today. The story that you shared with me from the Associated Press really caught my eye. The headline is this: Democrats and Republicans share core values, but still distrust each other. Break this down for us.
Yeah, the survey was done by the University of Chicago and it was published by Associated Press. And what the survey had revealed is that people on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, pretty much agree 9 times out of 10 that they agree on core values of compassion. I believe fairness was the second one, and then personal responsibility. But what they also found is that less than a third of people on both sides think that someone else of another political affiliation are they disagree that the people of another political affiliation share the same values. So what the survey has essentially found is that people on both sides of the political aisle pretty much share core values, but they disagree that people on the other side do. And this is just showing that the political polarization in America is just getting wider and deeper, despite being an already very much bipolar political system. And it very much could be a byproduct of the echo chambers that we are finding ourselves in, especially particularly in social media, in which they are designed and the algorithms are designed to create these echo chambers.
Well, what was just so funny is that they share so much in common, and yet they hate each other so much. I mean, it kind of reminds me of what the libertarian criticism is of the two parties. The uniparty is that they really just have a lot in common. I've got to do a very brief segue, first of all, and say thank you and happy birthday to Studio 314, John Burroughs. Happy birthday. 50th birthday today to John Burroughs. He's a big supporter of the Wake Up America show. He helps to bring more content just like the stuff that you're hearing, the guests like Daniela Pensack to the table. So thank you very much to John Burroughs and happy birthday, as well as Anthony Jones, who says I should reach out to Tim Pool for the documentary I'm making because he's giving money to creators to fight the culture war. He'll mention it in the Discord as well. Rock Chalk. Thank you, Anthony. I will do that. I will try and reach out to Tim Pool and see if he will help me to produce that documentary. We shall see. All right, Daniela, so were there any other findings in this poll that you found interesting to share?
Oh, that was just the main issue of the survey. And again, you know, the polarization that is happening in the United States, I think we can all agree that it's becoming very much it's becoming extreme. It's getting to a point where it's gonna end in a civil war. And it's actually quite scary to see that, you know, people are blind to the fact that basic common sense, reasonable stances like fairness, personal responsibility can't be agreed on. And we assume that people on the other political side don't agree on that. But these are just, you know, common sense values that I think most humans share. But because of the political nature of American politics, the divide is very much dangerous, and it's almost forcing us to not consider the fact that we are all just human and we all just come from a common place of human decency.
You probably, you work for Turning Point USA as a field coordinator for high schools. You probably get a lot of weird interactions with people who just make assumptions about who you are and what you believe based on your affiliation with Turning Point. Am I wrong?
Yeah, unfortunately, that does happen all the time. And it also happens on both sides. You know, conservatives assume I have one stance on issues, and, you know, liberals assume that I have another stance on other issues. And sometimes both are wrong. That's why I like to call myself a libertarian, simply because I think that certain elements of the conservative right are going too far on one direction, as the left is going too far in another direction. And socially and culturally, we are seeing this split becoming more divisive because of that. And I think a lot of the conservative reaction could be warranted because of what's happening on the left, but at the same time, I don't think it's a valid solution to what's happening either.
Daniela, I'd like to switch subjects here to another story that you brought to my that you brought to me. I did talk about it yesterday, but before I do, just out of curiosity, so I can kind of get where you're coming from on this one. Are you white?
Yes, I am white.
Okay, I don't
Yeah.
want to assume here. So, you never want to assume these days anymore. Maybe you don't identify as such. But apparently, a white Starbucks manager has won $25 million claiming she was fired over her race after the arrest of black men. Explain this story to me like I'm five.
Okay, so basically what happened is that Shannon Phillips, like you already mentioned and touched on the other day, but she was uh, put on leave or fired because she had refused two black men to enter the store's bathrooms after they were basically, you could argue, loitering. They were waiting for another individual, but they didn't purchase any products from Starbucks, and so they were effectively, kicked out. And because of that, she was arrested and then let go afterwards by the company. And that caused a big stir and conversation in the nation saying, whether or not this was valid. And what the jury has found unanimously is that she was let go because she was white, and that is a violation of her civil rights. Just point blank, period. That's what it was. And so as a result, she has been awarded the 25 million. Now, I do think that $25 million is much. I don't know if it's
A lot.
necessary. That I don't I don't know if that amount is necessary, but at the same time, it is sending a very strong message to Americans saying that, white Americans aren't going to stand for putting up with lesser rights simply because of the racist narrative that's being America today.
What was interesting about this is that apparently she was not involved at all in any way, shape, or form with this incident that occurred in Starbucks.
Oh, okay. She was. I thought I was under the impression that she had tried to get them to leave the store
No,
afterwards.
so she was a regional manager and like the Starbucks was under her purview, but the reason why she actually won the money was because she didn't have anything to do with that incident. She actually tried to help the company with all the
Mhm.
protests and support the security of the stores. And it was this deal where they were telling her manager, who was black, told her to fire a manager who was white, who also didn't work at that store, as an act of retaliation. So it was like they were trying to they fired all these white people who had nothing to do with it, who weren't even working at the store. So that's how they were able to prove that, that she was innocent of this, because they said that it was because she like didn't do her job correctly. But in
Right.
reality, it was just that they wanted to like get a couple of white scalps, if you will. Pretty wild, eh?
Yeah, no, and again, the narrative that has been being pushed in America and has been being pushed in the last few years about, the racist narrative and that there is no reverse racism happening in America whatsoever. That is definitely a major problem, and I think that this is sending a huge message to corporations nationwide, and that they should really much be careful about what they're doing, because as far as I understand, this case also had spurred a lot of like anti-racist protests in America as well. This is back in 2018, I believe. And they use fodder and I think people on that side use fodder any way they can to create these protests and to create like an uprising and an overall narrative that reverse racism doesn't exist and anti-whiteism doesn't exist in America when it very much does. And a lot of corporations try to feed into that as well, just to get, brownie points by their consumer base. But I mean, that's illegal and that could go against people's civil rights. And so I'm glad that this case, was examined further and that the jury did result in that outcome.
No kidding. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. I'm grateful to have you here. We have our regular guest, Daniela Pensack, on right now. She's a field coordinator for Turning Point USA. Daniela, Bud Light officially dethroned as the top beer in the U.S. market. Reasons to celebrate?
I think so. Modelo is now the top contender and has dethroned Bud Light. Finally, I believe they're standing at 8% of all consumption in America, or beer consumption, and Bud Light has dipped down to 7%, which has been a long time coming, especially since the recent partnerships they've had in the last couple months. And I think people are saying, or analysts are saying, that if Bud Light doesn't pull through by July 4th, or by that week of July 4th, they're pretty much done as a company, at least for a long while, because they really dug themselves in a grave here. And a lot of people, and especially like newer conservatives, are saying that voting with your wallet doesn't work, or like only local boycotts work. Boycotts of large chains won't work at all. But we are seeing it happen in real time, that very much is possible. Now, it is a result of the ongoing social issues, especially during Gay Pride Month, that we're seeing people on the left making a loud voice for the LGBT community. And so as a result, conservatives may respond to that in kind. So it is kind of a byproduct of the social situation right now. But at the same time, this is what's necessary to show the message to Americans everywhere that you can make a stand and that you can vote with your wallet.
I agree, and I think it's interesting to see that the second most popular beer was Modelo, so a Mexican beer. I guess they are taking over the country. Daniela Pensac, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today?
Sure. Quite a few things, but most of all, and this is a topic that I am passionate about, and that consumers do have a ultimate choice and vote in the country, and it's not just by voting in the ballot, but it is voting with your wallet. And like I just mentioned previously, I have been seeing a concerning trend, especially like Generation Z conservatives, saying that we need more social safety nets. These are people on the right saying that, and I think that's concerning. I don't think we need to go that far in promoting those policies in order to get the message across that the left is going too far in some of their messaging. It very much is simple as being a conscious consumer, and I think more people need to really, run full speed ahead with that narrative, because that is more important and that is more safe in the long run than just wanting the government to provide social safety nets for you in the long term.
Looks like the live stream viewers agree with you, Daniela. Studio 314, the birthday boy, says exactly. Daniela, vote with your wallet. Daniela, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate you. It's good to see you again. We'll see you again next week.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by our friend John Burke at shellshockcbd.com. I threw my back out last week, and today is like the first day that I'm actually starting to feel better, and I know why. It's thanks to these awesome painkiller products over at shellshockcbd.com. Have you tried it yet? I want to encourage all of the listeners of the Wake Up America show to at least visit Shell Shock CBD today and try one product from his excellent collection of goods. And here's the thing. From shellshockcbd.com, you can get a variety of CBD and Delta 8 products. So some of these products are going to have that psychoactive effect that I know that some of you are looking for, like the delicious chocolate Delta bar that you can see pictured right down here on your screen right now. That baby's got 40 milligrams of Delta 8. That will be, come with me and you'll be in a land of pure imagination if you take the Delta bar. But if you're really just into pain relief, this is my product that I recommend. This has saved my life in the past couple of weeks. The Roll-On Roll-Out CBD Freeze Roll-On. As I have dealt with the struggles of getting older and fatter, the back problems have begun, I guess, and it just started last week. I used this CBD Freeze Roll-On to help my back, and God, I don't know what I would have done without it. Here's the deal. You get 10% off if you use my code AP4Liberty, which you can see down at the bottom of the screen right there. Visit shellshockcbd.com today. Get yourself some delicious hemp tea or perhaps some tasty pineapple gummies, right? CBD here. And here's the good news. If you try some of these gummies and they don't perform the function that you wanted them to perform, if they don't work for you, get your money back. John will give you your money back because he believes in these products, and as a user of these products, I agree. They are absolutely effective. And if you don't believe me, try them today with that 10% discount with that code AP for Liberty. And then if you don't like the products, you can get your money back. There's a little Trumpy Buddha there. You can see that's the silky Trumpy Buddha there. Love it. All right. We're going to, I think I'm not going to.
Donald Trump and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Petersen is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Do you have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Grateful to have you here. If you're a regular viewer of the show, make sure you smash that like button. We appreciate all of our support from our viewers who watch us on Rumble, Facebook, Spreely, YouTube, Twitch, billion other places as well. Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku as well. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Wake Up America show. We're grateful to have you here. Why do fathers take an extra pair of socks when they go golfing? In case they get a hole in one. Dad joke of the day. There you go. All right. The American Medical Association is discouraging doctors from using body mass index only to measure whether a person is a healthy body weight because the system is racist.
No, God!
Yes!
No, God, please,
yeah,
no!
Oh, yes.
No!
Oh, no, yes, no. It's true. It's racist.
How dare you?
BMI has been widely used because it's easily measured, it's inexpensive, and it has specific cutoff points for the overweight and obese classifications. However, it's not perfect. It never really has been perfect. The AMA, the American Medical Association's House of Delegates, adopted a new policy this month recognizing the issues with the BMI. Under the newly adopted policy, they wrote, the AMA recognizes issues with using BMI as a measurement due to its historical harm, its use for racist exclusion, and because BMI is based primarily on data collected from previous generations of non-Hispanic white populations. Non-Hispanic white populations. I love how they're really doing everything they can to like lump those Hispanics in with white people. Have you been noticing this over the last few months, especially when we had that mass shooter event? It's like you're reading these articles about the new face of white supremacy, Hispanic white supremacists, non-Hispanic white populations. It's just kind of weird, don't you think? Everything's a little bit racist. Okay, Trey says, thank God we have DEI academics producing this kind of stuff. I know, right? The new policy comes after the AMA presented a report that addressed the BMI issues in 2023's annual meeting. But there are other issues as well with the BMI. We all knew this, right? It's an imperfect measure because it doesn't directly address body fat. And it's misleading about the effects of body fat mass on mortality rates. I'm a little curious about where they're going with that one. And it doesn't account for differences between sexes, genders, and age spans, according to the new policy, which, definitely is a concern. Further, the use of BMI is problematic, they write, when used to diagnose and treat individuals with eating disorders because it does not capture the full range. What is that noise? Sorry. Of abnormal eating disorders. BMI should be used along with other measures like body composition, waist circumference, little in the middle, but she got much back, and genetic and metabolic factors, the new AMA policy says. Can you guess which part of that was that I injected? There are numerous concerns with the way BMI has been used to measure body fat and diagnose obesity, yet some physicians find it to be a helpful measure in certain scenarios, said the AMA immediate past president, Jack Resnick. He says it's important for physicians to understand the benefits and limitations and in clinical settings to determine the best care for their patients. Was that an Avenue Q reference? Oh, Doug H., you give yourself a gold star, buddy. Yes. We all know that the BMI has not been the best measure of somebody's overall general health. And Cheeky Mare points this out. She says, I agree they should use other methods as well as BMI. My personal trainer has 8% body fat and he is considered obese. My mom and I weigh the same, but she looks worse because I have way more muscle. Well, good for you. But did you know that the BMI is also racist? Racist, I swear, racist. No, God, no.
God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
The AMA says that it's going to support efforts to educate physicians on the issues with BMI and alternative measures for diagnosing obesity. In recent years, of course, the body positivity and the fat positivity movements have been picking up steam in the U.S., arguing that obese people can be healthy.
How
Yes.
dare you?
It's true. That's what they say. Fat activists have rebelled against diet culture and made specific demands like free extra seats on airplanes to accommodate their size. What do you think? Free extra seats on airplanes to accommodate their size? I think paying for an extra seat is probably the right way to go. What do you think about that? All right, let's talk about that. But tourist submarine exploring the Titanic wreckage has disappeared in the Atlantic Ocean, according to the Coast Guard. This same tourist submarine trip actually also got lost for a few hours during a trip last year. We're talking about the search, which is dwindling in terms of time to rescue these people who are, they were probably somewhere near the bottom of the ocean in the Atlantic. It's a really scary situation. Thank God I've got a Titanic expert to join me coming up next. Justin Petersen, my brother, to talk about this rescue operation when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're grateful to have you here. If you are a regular viewer of the show, you know what to do. Make sure you click that like button as you file in and sit down to join us to hear us talk about the biggest news and stories of the day. If you're new to the channel and this is your first time seeing the Wake Up America show, welcome. Glad to have you here. Make sure you subscribe to whichever channel that you're watching us on, and make sure that you set your schedule, your calendar, to watch the show every Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time, so you can stay informed on everything that's going on in the world and also have a lot of fun doing it. Well, my next story is a pretty big one. A harrowing tale. A submarine on a very pricey tourist expedition to the Titanic shipwreck in the Atlantic Ocean has vanished, with likely only 4 days worth of oxygen. Authorities are now searching for the missing passengers, which includes a famed explorer. The U.S. Coast Guard said the submarine began its journey underwater with 5 passengers on Sunday morning, and the research vessel that it was working with lost contact with the crew about an hour and 45 minutes into the dive. Joining me now to discuss is resident Titanic expert and brother of me, Justin Petersen, joining us on the show. Good morning, Justin.
I think they refer to us as Titaniacs. I think that's what they call people that are like really into the Titanic. Like Titaniacs, or like because we're maniacs about the Titanic.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you don't have like a degree in oceanography or anything like that, but I mean, like, you basically have an associate's degree in Titanic, in the Titanic.
Yeah, no, it's been a real thing since I saw Mom watch the 1953 movie Titanic when we came back from Tractor Supply with Dad. We came, and she came in and she was crying her eyeballs out, and I'm like, "What are you crying about, Mom?" And she was watching this Titanic movie, and I was like, "What's that?" And from then on, I was obsessed.
I mean, it's a thrilling story. You have been following it for years, and anything that goes on with the Titanic, you're all over it. There's a Titanic musical. Obviously, when the movie came out, I think you went and saw it in theaters 3 or 4 times or what have you.
A day.
Yeah, exactly. So you pretty much know all there is to know about the Titanic. But would you ever get in a submarine and go down to, if they would give you that $250,000 ticket for free, would you get in a sub and go down and look at her?
Not ever. Never. No, I like terra firma. I'm a big fan of the earth. I'll be on the water, but I'll never be under the water. I'm like, no. And Mom used to always say, she's like, I never want to go out in a boat where I can't see land. That was like Mom's thing that she'd always say. No, this whole thing is really nightmare fuel. This whole story, I mean, obviously the Titanic has been visited many times, probably thousands of times since it was discovered in 1985 by Dr. Robert Ballard from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. There's been very minor incidents and things happen, but this is probably the most severe situation that's happened so far. It really echoes art. Life imitates art, or in some ways. But in 1980, there was a film called Raise the Titanic that came out, which was a sort of a movie of a novel by Clive Cussler, which was sort of about Russian espionage and the Titanic getting discovered. And one of the submersibles in the story in the movie does implode because of pressures, because there's a leak in the submersible. And at that level of pressure at the ocean, I mean, even the slightest crack can cause catastrophic damage. I mean, it's the pressures at that level in the ocean are unimaginable. There's so many different scenarios that I've read about this situation, and none of them look great. One of the things that people may not know is that the people that are in the submersible were actually drilled into the submersible. So even if that submersible comes back to the surface of the ocean, there's no way for those people to get out of that submersible because they've been drilled into it.
What do you mean drilled into it?
Well, they literally closed the doors from the outside. It's sealed from the outside. So there's no way that the people from the inside can get out. I mean, this is why I'm saying nightmare fuel. Like, if you claustrophobia, I mean, it's like this story would make me wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night screaming, because it's like that terrifying. So even if they are able to, rise back up to the surface, they'll still be there with no way of getting out. So, and still a limited oxygen supply. So it's a very grim situation. And I mean, I hate to say this because it's rather macabre, but you would almost prefer the pressurization theory, the implosion theory, to just being deprived of oxygen. I mean, God forbid you go to the bottom of the ocean and you're sitting there at the bottom of the ocean, and you might as well be in outer space. Literally, in terms of accessibility of people to get to you, you might as well be on the moon.
Fill us in on that, like the rescue operation, because I mean, we're talking about 15,000 feet down, and it's not just getting down to the bottom of the ocean and looking them on the bottom. You've got the possibility that maybe the sub is like you say, like in space, like the sub could still be like traveling around trying to make it to the surface, but unable to get to the surface, which means it could be anywhere in that 15,000 foot zone.
Yeah. There was an interview or a video done, I think it was done by CBS last year, of this particular tourism company, where they went over a lot of the features of this submersible. Even as a person who doesn't know much about submersibles, watching that, I was like, this thing looks like the most backyard. Like, they were running it with a literal game controller. Yeah. I'm like, no. I mean, you have to understand, this kind of a submersible cannot even compare to the high-tech, like Alvin and the other like high-tech mirror submersibles that have gone down to the Titanic. I mean, those are like the Cadillacs of submersibles. This thing looks like just a long tube, and yeah, the construction of it looks really shoddy. And
Janky, I think, is a word that I heard yesterday. And they say that the
Yeah.
development of it was done by professionals, but that many of the aspects of the sub itself are very, simple kind of backyard
Yeah.
solutions to do
Yeah.
this. It
Yeah.
costs $250,000 for someone to ride in this thing, but the crew is only 5 people. And they have enough oxygen for a few days. What are some of the theories of what could have happened that people are talking about right now? There's the implosion theory, but what else?
Right. Well, there's the implosion theory, obviously, that something in the construction of the submersible was faulty and would have the thing of that people, at that depth, death is so instantaneous, you don't even know that something happened. It's so quick. I mean, it's within a blink of an eye and it's gone. The other theory would be that somehow they'd be able to. There were several safety mechanisms in this submersible that would allow it to come back up to the surface. But I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. If it's at the bottom of the ocean, I mean, you're kind of SOL. I mean, if it were to finally just disengage and fall and free fall, which is what these submersibles do, right? When they go down, they sort of drop weight and they free fall to the floor of the Atlantic. And I think this is the thing about the story. The contact was lost only about halfway through their descent. So they there was no communication from that point on. So they lost communication before the submersible had even reached the floor of the ocean. So I mean, in any situation, this doesn't look good at all. This does not look good. It is one of those Titanic horror stories that we've all sort of been afraid of ever since the ship was discovered, because when you're dealing with that level of pressure at that depth. I mean, I think that I remember the Titanic is 2 miles at the bottom of the ocean, under the Atlantic Ocean. So I mean, like I said, they might as well be on Mars or on the moon for the accessibility.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Petersen. I'm speaking to my brother, Justin Petersen, who is our resident Titanic expert, about a missing submarine, a Titanic tourism submarine that takes wealthy people 2 miles below the ocean to visit the wreck of the famed 1912 cruiser that sank to the bottom of the sea after striking an iceberg in the Atlantic Ocean on its ill-fated maiden voyage. Justin, do we know anything about the people who are on the boat right now, or the crew?
Yeah, there were 5 people, like you said, aboard. We do know that we've confirmed Hamish Harding, who was a 58-year-old British businessman and explorer, as well as another businessman, Shahzada Dawood, and his son, Suleiman Dawood. But as far as we know, those are the only people that are on board. We think that Paul-Henri Nargeolet, who is a French explorer, is supposed to be on board, but we don't have that confirmed yet. But yeah, this is what's known as Titanic tourism. These people who have a lot of money. I think Hamish Harding was a billionaire. No joke, like literally a billionaire. Yeah, I mean, this whole project was really done not for scientific discovery, not for exploratory understanding of the wreck or things like that, but it's just kind of a tourist undertaking. Like we'll take you down to see the boat for.
Do we know estimated about how much longer we have before this changes from a rescue operation to a recover operation?
Well, I mean, as of yesterday, they had between 70 and 96 hours left of oxygen in that submersible. So I would imagine that once we hit that mark, that's going to probably be the point at which things will probably turn from rescue to recovery.
So by tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of, if you think about it, it's like Mount Everest, like people that go to Mount Everest, there's all of these bodies on Mount Everest that have tried to, they've tried and they've died on their way. So it's just unfortunate now the Titanic is going to have that kind of same, legacy of lost explorers who've gone down there. So it's unfortunate. It's really sad.
Do you believe in a curse?
No, I don't believe in curses. Only this hot body.
There is.
Oh, don't have me on your show. I'm too much before coffee. I'm telling you right now.
Justin, what about the Titanic was a luxury liner. Obviously, it had people who were on this boat who had people on the boat who were in steerage, and there were poor people there. But
right.
But this submarine is exclusively a playground of the rich. Do you think that some people probably may not be feeling very sympathetic to people who engage in this
Here's the
kind of
thing.
tourism?
Can I just tell you, these are my values. If your first feeling, listen, if your first feeling about this situation is to have any sort of not even Schadenfreude, it's like happiness about these people's demise, you really need to look at yourself as a human being and see what your character is made of, because nobody, regardless of their social status in life, deserves to perish in this way. People who are safely ensconced in their basements with headphones and their mom's casserole can make such proclamations. But I find that people who wish to say such things usually have an inverse relationship with their ability to clean their rooms.
Justin, what do we know about the resources that are available to actually rescue these people?
Very few. This is the situation. I mean, even if let's say the theory of that they were free falling and they're at the bottom of the ocean, there are very, very few rescue vehicles that are able to get to that depth of ocean to rescue. We don't have it. There's never been a situation that has required us to be in a life-saving capacity with that level of technology to rescue people at that level of the ocean. Sadly. Yeah.
Very sad. If you're just tuning in to Wake Up America show, make sure you click that like button if you're enjoying your commentary. And it's your first time here, make sure you subscribe if you're watching us on Rumble or YouTube or any of the other channels that we're streaming live on this morning. We're also on Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku. Grateful to have our audience over there through the Spreely app. We appreciate you very much. When I see this story, I don't I don't feel that sort of like class, warfare vibe, right? I feel bad for these people, but I mean, people who take these kinds of risks and who take their lives into their own hands, I mean, they must know that what they're doing is, placing their lives in danger. I think this man the Hamish gentleman, he also rode on the Blue Origin rocket from Jeff Bezos's Amazon in the last couple of years. So I mean, he's a thrill seeker. People who go out there and take their lives in their own hands in such a way, right? They do this knowing full well the risks. And now, if I were in a situation such as that, Justin, I would certainly want someone to try and come and rescue me. However, the resources of the U.S. Coast Guard, the resources of the government, people who go out and take insane and extreme risks and things like this, or people who go out and, canyons, with, wearing flip-flops, go out hiking in canyons, and then we have to send in rescue helicopters, which are very expensive. Sometimes the government will send them the bill for that. These are quite wealthy people. Do you think that these people, if they are rescued, should be required to pay for that?
I mean, I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have to sign a waiver they did have to sign a waiver with the company before they went down, that they would absolve the company of any, not wrongdoing, but negligence or, disaster or things like that. But the thing about it is that human beings, there's something in us that has always striven. Camelia, help me out here. Strived for exploratory knowledge, whether that be a knowledge of the oceans, whether that be a knowledge of the next town over. It's in us to want to explore as human beings. I think about, but it also requires a lot of money to explore. I mean, I remember in 4th grade, Mrs. Collins' class, learning about the fact that Christopher Columbus had to go and ask Queen Isabella, of Spain for money. It's like, give me some money so I can go to America, because he just didn't have it privately, so donations and, we rag on the rich, but man, when they are philanthropists, they give the world a whole lot of great things, whether that be architecture, sculptures, buildings, whatever, exploration.
What is it about the Titanic specifically, Justin, that would drive someone to take such an enormous risk with their own life and pay $250,000 of their hard-earned money to go 2 miles deep into the Black Ocean abyss just to look at an old shipwreck? Why?
You have to understand the people that are, I'm in this crew, but I'm not that devoted, but there's people in this crew of Titanic lovers that are obsessed, and they absolutely love this ship. Like they've built their whole lives around it, right? everything is about Titanic for them, and for them it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. They're being given the opportunity to do something that most people never get to do in their life. And I think for many people, there's such an emotional pull. This ship has such an emotional psychological pull for so many people.
Why?
Well, I think because here's the thing, you couldn't have written a story that is as gripping as this story. And I think the lessons that we continue to take away from it are so multifaceted in terms of human behavior, in terms of hubris, this idea that we can surmount nature, that we're able to overcome nature. We can't. We think we are. The egotism of the human spirit, the behavior of human beings in a situation. Today we have plane crashes, right? Where this is so grim and macabre, but death is rather fast. In a situation like the Titanic, one has an opportunity to mull over one's life in an hour and a half, 2 hours, to contemplate one's mortality and decide how one will act, knowing that mortality is indeed coming in several hours. And to see that sort of on a mass scale. Also, I think it has to do with the fact that this ship was so architecturally beautiful. It had been appointed with some of the best furniture, the best design, the most wonderful designers of England and Ireland, and had come in to work on the ship. And also it was a maiden voyage. So, I mean, it didn't even get a chance to finish its voyage across the ocean. There's just so many powerful, and I think for us culturally today, we still look at it as an example of hubris. I mean, today people in even business will say, well, we're arranging deck chairs on the Titanic, so the ship continues to hold this very strong cultural pull on us psychologically in terms of hubris and really to complete tragedy, but also the beauty of the human spirit in a way, because people acted in some ways that were so heroic and so valiant. They continue to inspire people to the present day.
Now, in regards to hubris, Justin, do you think that might also apply to this submarine?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that the situation with this submarine was really its construction, and it's sort of that the ocean is unforgiving. And anybody who's ever done any work in the ocean knows that things corrode very quickly. I mean, anything that goes into the water has to be taken care of to a very high degree. And when construction, first of all, is not so great, you're already putting yourself into a situation that's a little sketchy. I mean, I do recommend that you go have people go back and watch the video that CBS did, where they show the inside of it. And I thought, would I want to sit in this thing for like 8 hours? Because a Titanic trip from top to bottom to top again is about an 8-hour trip. And I thought, and there's no bathrooms, by the way. You can't just be like, oh, I gotta pee. There's no comforts. There's no creature comforts in this thing. And the workmanship was not great. So I think there's a lot of hubris in that. And I think the construction is going to be the real Achilles heel for this situation.
What do you think this means for any kind of Titanic tourism going forward? Do you think people can still continue to do this, or do you think this changes the game?
Nope. I think people are going to stop doing it. I really do. And I hope they would. I have really weird old views on things like this. I mean, I personally believe that the Titanic is a graveyard, and it should really only be investigated by people who have a scientific desire to learn something about the wreck or what's going on down there. But this sort of like tourism thing is just, to me, I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way, because I think it's a graveyard. And I think, if my relatives were on this ship and died, I would not want.
You wouldn't want people poking around.
No, I really wouldn't. I'd be like, leave my relatives in peace. And I think it's interesting because many of the people who were survivors of the Titanic when it was discovered had the same philosophy. So I take my marching orders from the people who were actually there, who were on the Titanic, and said,
We'll talk about that for just a moment, Justin, before we let you go. What was that attitude of the people when they discovered it?
Well, many of the people who were survivors of the Titanic, and I think in 1985, there were maybe 20 left, maybe 20 survivors of the Titanic in 1985. They all were of the unanimous view that the ship should be largely left alone. I mean, yes, we've discovered it. Let's take photographs, but that's where it should stop. And even Robert Ballard was of the opinion in 1985 that the wreck should not be disturbed, that he respected it as a graveyard. And for many of those survivors, you have to remember their fathers died, right? They were waving goodbye to their fathers from the boat as their fathers, were, on the ship of the sinking boat. So, I mean, they didn't want their relatives' final resting place to be a place of social media, sensation. I mean, I think that's I think that's what they felt at that time. And I kind of agree with them. You know, I like, if it was my relatives, I would not want anybody messing with my relatives' graves.
Stephanie
That's
asked a
just me.
question. Are there still skeletons down there?
There's all any organic material at the wreck site has been long since eaten away by underwater organisms. Nothing can survive at that depth, or not survive, but will stick around. However, the Great Lakes, right up in North America, they will. So, like, for example, there's a ship called the Empress of Ireland that sank in 1914, I believe, in 17 minutes, which is also terrifying. But it sank in about 17 minutes. And there are still to this day remains at the ship because of the water and the temperature of that water and the composition of that water. But the depth of the Titanic's water and the underwater organisms have long since eaten away. But the sad thing is that oftentimes you'll see shoes which are made of leather, which the underwater organisms won't eat. So there will be remains of shoes, basically. Well, you'll see someone who came to rest, like a body would come to rest on the floor of the Atlantic.
Is there anything else about this story, Justin, that you would like to share with our audience?
No, I just think it's a really sad thing. I think it's one of those things that all of us since 1985 who've loved the Titanic have, we always want these explorers to come back. We always want them to be safe. And when you're at this depth and you're in this particular uninhabitable, inhospitable environment, you're always taking your life into your hands every time. So it's a real shame.
Justin Petersen, resident Titanic expert for the Wake Up America show, and of course my brother. Justin, that stash just looks better and better every time we see you.
Oh, fresh.
Thank you, Justin. We appreciate you. I love you, brother. Have a good day.
You too. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. What do you think about Justin Petersen and his reporting on the submersible that is missing in the Atlantic Ocean? You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Here's what I think happened. The tourist submarine Titan's Eye descended into these dark depths, carrying a group of excited millionaires eager to witness the haunting beauty of the Titanic's resting place. And as the vessel approached the underwater wreckage, an atmosphere of anticipation had filled the air. Through the submarine's reinforced glass window, the passengers caught their first glimpse of an ethereal presence. Ghostly figures, adorned in elegant attire, appeared on the deck of this sunken ship. They glowed with an otherworldly radiance, their eyes shimmering like stars in the night sky. The millionaires were mesmerized by this sight, and the ghostly apparitions beckoned to them, their movements graceful and inviting. Their melodic voices carried through the water, reaching the ears of these passengers like a siren's song. The ghosts appeared alive once again, as if the Titanic itself had been resurrected. Enchanted by this captivating allure, some of these passengers couldn't resist the haunting call. They were drawn to the promise of an extraordinary experience, an opportunity to become part of the Titanic's storied legacy. The millionaires exchanged glances, their expressions torn between caution and temptation. As the debate raged between the submarine, the ghostly figures continued to sway and swing, their mesmerizing presence growing more potent with each passing moment. It was as though the Titanic, lost to the depths for so long, was yearning for new passengers to fill its once opulent halls. In a moment of collective decision, the majority succumbed to the allure of the ghost's invitation. The hatch of the Titan's Eye swung open, exposing the passengers to the beckoning specters. Excitement mingled with trepidation as they stepped out onto the ghost ship's ethereal deck. Yet as their feet touched the spectral surface, the atmosphere shifted. The beautiful apparitions morphed into twisted and sinister forms. Their enchanting songs turned into haunting shrieks that reverberated through the water, piercing the eardrums of the millionaires. The once alluring ghosts, now grotesque and menacing, lunged at the unsuspecting passengers, their elegant facades shattered, revealing their true nature. With monstrous strength, they dragged the millionaires towards the Titanic's dark and decaying depths. Fear and panic consumed the passengers as they fought against the spectral onslaught. The ghost's icy grip tightened around their limbs, dragging them further into the watery wreckage. Desperate cries for help filled the silent depths, unheard by any but the ghosts themselves. In a matter of moments, the Titan's Eye, once a vessel of luxury and dreams, became a tomb beneath the waves. The water rushed into the submarine, swallowing the pleas of the doomed millionaires. The ghosts in the dark waters had claimed their new victims, forever merging them with the tragic fate of the Titanic. Only an eerie silence remained, broken only by the distant echoes of the ghosts' laughter and the haunting creaks of the submerged ship. The ill-fated excursion had transformed into a tragedy, a chilling testament to the dangers of succumbing to the allure of the supernatural. The tale of Titan's Eye would be whispered among the depths, a warning to those who dared to trespass on the realm of the ghostly. The ghosts of the Titanic had lured the passengers to their watery graves, forever sealing their fate within the twisted embrace of the sunken ship. And that's all for the Wake Up America show. Thank you very much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Make sure that you click that like button if you haven't on the way out and subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow's Wednesday, so you know Judge Andrew Napolitano is going to come in here with his legal opinion. I wonder what he had to say about what Donald Trump said on the Bret Baier interview. Should be interesting stuff. Don't forget also to visit ap4libertyshop.com. Get all your awesome 4th of July merchandise 15% off, and we will see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show. wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP4Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Petersen stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at ap4libertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit ap4libertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP4Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit ap4libertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.